want to play a game? The like button in front of you will not press itself. For years, you have been watching these videos without smashing that like button. That ends today. Smash that like button in front of you, or continue living like a bottom-feeding, content-scrubbing lowlife. Like and subscribe. Make your choice.
Yeah, pretty good, huh? Pretty good. Or of course I could say,
Hello, viewer. I would like to play a game. Please pretend, just for a moment, that the year is 2018. For I did not finish Halloween 2018. My bad. Well, I'm gonna put this in the Halloween playlist as if it is 2018. Oops.
It bleeds. We can kill it.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I will hunt you down wherever you're hiding, and I will eliminate you. I am justice.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff. You can either ignore it or you can help me to stop it.
is that good stuff? Is that good content? Alright, whatever. What's up, everybody? D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and what's up? It's Halloween time. It is October. It's spooky season. It's time to talk about some spooky movies, and you know what? It's pretty rare for me to watch a spooky movie in theaters and be like, that was good enough for me to review. Actually, you know, I feel like I do walk out of a lot of them being like, I can make a video about that. I just don't because I'm not motivated, but it's Saw. Saw, a franchise that I don't know if I like. It's like I've got this weird thing in my brain where if it's been a while since I've seen the Saw movies, my brain tends to only remember the Saw movies that I don't like, and so I forget that there's a lot of them that I really enjoy. By the way, if you want like an in-depth review from me on the Saw movies, I did a whole podcast about them back in 2018, very in-depth with the boys. You can go check out that episode. I don't know if it's good, but you can go check it out. I don't know if I stand by any of my opinions from back then, but Saw X came out. 2023's Saw X was recently released. I watched it. I had a great time with it, and so I wanted to get on here and review it with you guys. 2023's Saw X is a midquel Saw movie set in between Saw 1 and 2, but don't let that fool you. This movie fully assumes that you're familiar with the Saw franchise and very much expects you to know the general lore. In fact, I would say do not watch Saw X if you haven't seen Saws 1 through 4, as this movie reveals the twists of all of those films. So go check those films out because those are the ones that are going to be important to setting this one up. Everything after Saw 4, you don't need it. The biggest Saw plot twist of all time originates with this movie, as it turns out this film was directed by longtime Saw collaborator Kevin Grudert. Grudert has been involved in the Saw franchise ever since its birth. This guy has been around for a long time, serving as the editor on Saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no, not 6 and 7, but Jigsaw, and now he's the editor of Saw X, and you might be like, why do we care about an editor? Well, he also executive produced Spiral, and he's been an executive producer on other Saw films, and the reason he took 6 and 7 off is because the real Saw plot twist is he directed both Saws 6 and 7. Now he's directing Saw X. I don't really understand how that's possible, considering that means this goober worked on every single Saw film. This guy was involved with every single one of them, directed one of the good ones, one of the really good ones. Saw 6 is a really good Saw movie, and then somehow, someway turned around and directed the super stinker Saw 7, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I hate that movie so much. A movie that feels like a parody of the Saw franchise that was made by somebody who utterly hates it. And he's the one who directed it. I don't know how that's possible, because then he turned around after directing Saw 7 and directed the best Saw movie ever made. Oh, by the way, spoiler-free review here. I'm going to be very light on plot details because I think this is a fun time. Saw movies are movies you don't want spoiled, so just go in and enjoy it. Although I will say, don't get your hopes up for a crazy lore twist. The twists in this film are very much in line with the twist from Saw 6, where it's more of a twist of how the whole movie kind of fits together in terms of how the game is being played, and less of a twist of a crazy lore reveal. There's also a post-credit scene for this movie, and don't freak out. Saw movies have had post-credit scenes before. In fact, a Saw movie directed by Grudert himself features a post-credit scene, that being Saw 6, although that one went nowhere. This one one's just kind of an ending little teaser to wrap up a plot line that was kind of very loosely set up in the first act of the movie. And it got our theater clapping like a Marvel movie. I mean, we loved it. Me and the boys, we went crazy for it because it was exactly what we wanted out of a post-credit scene. Fan service as hell, but it was a lot of fun and also didn't feel cheesy. I mean, everything in a Saw movie is a little cheesy, but not overly cheesy. But I truly believe that Saw X is the greatest Saw movie ever made. I think it's truly just a well-made film. Beyond being a good Saw movie, it's just a good movie. It's not even just a good horror movie, it's a good movie. For the first time ever in the Saw franchise, the cinematography was truly just beautiful. It wasn't hyper stylized, the color filters weren't there, and it kind of felt a little disconnected from the Saw films at first as a result of it, until you kind of realize why. Saw X is the Oppenheimer of the Saw franchise. Remember the brilliant way that Christopher Nolan was able to get us inside of Oppenheimer's head and show us how Oppenheimer can see the music? Well, now we can get inside of John Kramer's head and see, so can he. It happens that the music playing in his head is utterly horrifying. Saw X takes us and puts us straight into the brain of the brilliant Jigsaw killer, and we finally get to do what Riggs couldn't. We get to see as he sees. A scene at the start of this film shows us wonderfully just how Kramer can watch a person make one bad decision and instantly know exactly what their trap is going to be and how it will play out. Shows us exactly how he views the world, and it's really twisted. Also, there's like scenes of him just sitting in a park bench all cutesy, and he's drawing pictures of saw traps. This film also does a great job showing us how truly remarkable and smart Kramer is. There's some amazing scenes that show him put his engineering to work for genuine good before he starts breaking bad in this movie. And we get a fantastic little moment showing him triangulate a location based on mere memory alone. This film, in my opinion, does wonders in terms of ranking John Kramer up from being just a cool villain to one of the greatest fictional villains ever made. I know a lot of people love John Kramer already, and they're like, what are you talking about? I've always felt that Billy the Puppet is more iconic than John Kramer, and I think that this movie does a great job demonstrating why that shouldn't be the case. Why the Jigsaw clones that come after Kramer never lived up to his legacy, and it's because he himself is what makes it work. Also, Tobin Bell is great in this movie, and it's his sexiest film. Tobin Bell has never looked so hot. I was a little worried going into this movie that maybe I've outgrown the Saw franchise because I just wasn't excited for it. I don't need more Saw entries. The traps and the crazy lore twists, they don't do enough to get me to want to come back to more of these films anymore because I've got 9 of them. I've got years and years worth of these movies that I can already enjoy and rely on to go back to. I don't really need more. If I want like really crazy horror films, there are other films that satisfy what I'm looking for in terms of the gore fest. My tastes have changed. So what I really wanted out of this movie was just a good story and good characters, and that is exactly what this film delivered on. This is the slowest paced Saw movie, which is going to scare off a lot of people. Don't worry, the traps are wonderful. The traps in this film are some of my absolute favorites we've seen, and it's not just because of the traps, but it's because this film knows how to portray them well. Saw X tells the story of Jigsaw seeking a new and very unusual, highly secretive treatment for his cancer, and upon his operation, it seems like he has genuine hope and will turn a new leaf. He even destroys his plans for what will eventually become Saw 3, and it seems like, wow, if this had worked, this guy would have turned out to be a great guy, despite the fact that he's already done a bunch of murders. Well, that is only to discover that Kramer is not the only one capable of pulling a Saw twist, as he, for the first time ever, gets twisted. Turns out that he just got scammed, and so now it's time to put a group of truly horrible people, or maybe not so horrible, into Saw traps. Saw X does 3 things better, in my opinion, that elevates it above every other Saw movie. Think to yourself, what makes a Saw trap truly memorable? Sometimes it's just the gadget, like the bear trap is so iconic. But oftentimes that's not the ones that stick around and linger in people's brains, at least not in mine. For me, it's not just the gore and the violence, it's the stakes. The carousel from Saw 6 is one of the most iconic ones ever, and it's because it does all the things that this movie does as well. Almost. The biggest 3 things that this film does to amplify its traps in such an incredible way is, number 1, there is an audience for the traps. The carousel trap, the ending of Saw 4, many of the iconic Saw moments are moments that happen in front of an audience. The only time that's not the case is the goddamn public execution. What a horrible movie. But there is an audience for these traps. Everybody's in the room together going through this together, and it raises the stakes and makes things so much more personal. It really, really works. Also, the people are actually able to win. These traps are not unbeatable. They also are like feasible. If these people people had seconds more, the people who fail, they would win. The people who win, they earned it. You win by playing the game. This is the first movie that feels like they can truly pull it off, and that's why it has so much more stakes, because these people really aren't fighting against a losing battle, they're fighting against the clock, and it's really exciting. And finally, John Kramer is in the room physically interacting with these people in real time. If he had done this in more films, I don't think Billy the Puppet would be what people think of when they think of Jigsaw. They'd be thinking of John Kramer, because this movie does a great job of showing how he in the room can have very interesting dynamics. They are able to call him out on his bullshit in real time, and he is able to respond how he feels appropriately. It's so interesting. It raises him to a whole new level. This is Jigsaw's most personal game. It's also just the most personal and interesting Saw movie as a result. This film does a wonderful job by putting us into Jigsaw's perspective, and that's a really hard task, because in order to demonstrate why he does what he does and get us to root for him for the first time ever, you have to find a way to make one of the most hypocritical, pompous, snobby horror villains ever likable and in some ways your hero. And the only way you can do that is by giving us a set of victims who you truly understand their punishments. This is a case where all of the punishments genuinely fit the crime in a very interesting way. Also, the people in these traps, you understand why they're there. Like, sometimes it's just like,
You cut yourself, and I think that's cringe.
and it's like, what are you doing, Jigsaw? Mental health issues, come on, man. But in this movie, you go, oh no, these people were actively malicious. It's a very interesting dynamic to put these people into traps. Again, what makes the Saw protagonists interesting? It's characters like the insurance broker from Saw 6, the guy who you watched go through this old trap with all of his insurance company, and you're like, okay, I understand why Eastman's here, because the entire game makes sense. The whole thing felt very thematically relevant, and this movie is the same exact way. Same with Saw 4, the same way we're able to get into Riggs' head and be like, yeah, you go, Riggs, kill these horrible people. This movie does that too. The characters in these traps are also very clever and well written, even if they're all not very smart. Some of them are, some of them aren't. That's one of the things that makes it interesting. They all have distinct and interesting personalities. You're able to figure them all out, understand what makes them tick, and it's very interesting to watch them react. They're also varying degrees of bad, ranging from tragic and misused to straight up downright worse than Jigsaw himself. That's what's so interesting about it. This film also goes out of its way to prove that John Kramer really does stand by his moral code. He's not just sitting there virtue signaling. He believes what he says. This film has him go out of his way to prove that when it comes down to it, even the Jigsaw killer, one of the most weird, hypocritical killers in horror history, is willing to literally risk his own life and his entire future plans to save an innocent life. This guy will stop at no costs to protect innocent people. It's super interesting dynamic to play upon. And it makes me really sad that we don't have more movies with Jigsaw as the protagonist. This is the first Saw movie where I was ever able to actually get behind Jigsaw's game and root for him. It was the first movie that also made me understand and root for his disciples. I'm never a big fan of the Jigsaw disciples, but all of a sudden I was a huge one. It completely justifies its need to exist. It proves that there is still some power left in the Saw tank, proves that there is still interesting, new, creative things you can do with this franchise, and also sets up for the first time ever in a way to springboard into a movie that feels very interesting. I'm not going to really say what you can do in the future, but there's almost the setup for a bit of a more vindicated Robin Hood styled Jigsaw in this movie, where you could go, now if there's going to be a future Jigsaw, that's a character who I would be interested to see do it. And that's not something I really feel with the Saw disciples, even with the characters in Spiral, which is like, I get why he's doing what he's doing, I just don't really care to see him back. Or in the movie Jigsaw, where it's like, okay, I don't understand why you did what you did, really, and seeing you back, I'm okay with seeing him back, but I don't need him. This movie sets up a way for me to be like, now that would be an interesting twist on the Saw franchise. A franchise full of twists. The most interesting thing they could do is create a Jigsaw killer that we actually root for, and that is what this movie gives us. Overall, I thought Saw X was like a perfect Saw movie. Music was great, special effects were wonderful, the traps were inventive, it had a good story, well told, with good characters. I give Saw X the only rating I would give a Saw movie, a Saw X out of X. This is a 10 out of 10 for me, the only 10 out of 10 in the Saw franchise for me. I thought this movie was wonderful, and I could not wait to see more. What do you guys think? Have you seen Saw X? If you have, comment below and let me know what you thought of it. What is your Saw movie rankings for me personally? I like all the even number Saw movies, all the odd number Saw movies I don't like, with the exception of Saw 1, which I am a fan of, but the even number movies are my jam. This is an even number Saw movie. It continued the trend of proving that the even number Saw movies are fantastic. Can't wait to see more, man. Next one might be a stinker because we're following that trend, but who knows? The one after that is going to be great. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you very much for all the support I get on the Patreon. It's because of the support on the Patreon that I can do videos like this, where this video is not going to have mass appeal or anything, but it's through the comfort, security, and friendship I get through the patrons on the Patreon that I feel cool doing videos like this. Saturn Dusk, I feel like I've seen on Twitter that you're a horror guy. What do you think of this one? All right, comment below, let me know, guys. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time for the next one, and thanks for tuning back into Halloween 2018. D-Man out.